I'm Cindy Burkhauer with the Access to Recreation Initiative, and we're here today to demonstrate a really exciting new prototype for making canoeing and kayaking accessible to all people of all abilities. And I'm here with Sandy Duffy, and Sandy has been a part of our Citizen Advisory Committee that has helped with the development of this prototype. Talk to us about how this launch system could really help him to be able to much more independently access a canoe or a kayak, to be able to go out and paddle, come back, and do it as independently as possible. The Access to Recreation Initiative is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and the initiative was to get some resources out in the community, in the recreation community, and in the manufacturing community to get people to come together around this issue of creating access to all recreation experiences for all people of all abilities. St. Clair County is working with Easy Dock and with some citizen groups with Great Lakes Lift and Dock here in Caro to develop this prototype. And we're here today to kind of show you how that prototype works and to get people excited about the possibilities of access to all types of recreation, particularly canoe and kayak launch, and being able to have that experience using this launch. There's going to be several of these in Michigan throughout, and possibly in other states. There's a real interest in this. Kayaking is something that people can do really independently. So today what we're going to do, Sandy's going to demonstrate how it works, and we're really excited about that. Universal design involves more than just the canoe-kayak launch, making it easier and accessible. It's about the site and the route to get here also. It's really important that in a dock system, the route to get to the dock is accessible, that it has a ramp and it has an easy slope. So that part becomes really critical. One of the things that we notice on this dock segment here, and we just have this set up in a garage here because it's, what, 11 degrees this morning, is the slope of this is at 12.5% slope. The maximum slope on a ramp is 8.33% slope. So this is steeper even than is allowed under the ADA. So in the water environment, they would make sure this ramp was longer so the slope was more gentle. So come on up, Sandy. See how he kind of had to pop and the front wheels are coming off that ramp a little bit? That's what happens when a ramp is too steep. The danger is somebody can tip right over backwards. One of the characteristics about this ramp is down here. This thing is called a transition plate. This is what bridges the gap from the dock to the ground. And it is 1/4 inch diamond cut steel, nice piano type hinge here. And the important thing is that there's no change of level here coming onto this ramp. Likewise, up here, another piano type hinge here, ramp going up onto here. These are two different hinge types on this prototype. Easy Dock is working on making this hinge even flatter and more accessible. So that's a part of one of the things that have kind of come out of working on a canoe-kayak launch. We're also influencing design on the support pieces of a product like this to make sure that they're really accessible. Easy Dock is learning to be able to say to people buying this dock to say, you know what? The land and that connection is really important. Those slopes are important. You want them to be as gentle as possible, under 5% if possible, for universal design. Approaching and getting onto the transfer system requires enough space for Sandy to be able to come up and get himself positioned in the appropriate place to transfer. People transfer some from the side, some from the front, so we've got enough dock space here. This is the position he is most comfortable with coming up here to make the transfer. So as he shows how he makes this transfer onto the transfer station, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the characteristics that make this universally accessible, meaning easier to use by everybody, and some of the characteristics. So as you'll know, the height of this is just about the height of the seat of his wheelchair. That's going to make it easier to move right over onto the bench. So Sandy, why don't you show us kind of how you position yourself? Sandy brought a cushion. He said this is something he would always do because he's moving out of the supportive cushion on his wheelchair onto a hard surface. So he's going to put this cushion down. And transfers out. So he does it a little bit to the side. This position here, one of the things I want to show is we've got enough space on the top box so that he has enough hand space for support, for balance side to side. This rail helps him to grip. There is a little bit of surface on the bottom here that keeps his hand from slipping. There's enough space to support himself side by side. So you've got hands, trunk, hands, and you can support on the bench. Then he puts a second cushion down, and this is the way Sandy does it. This isn't the way everybody does it. This is the way that works for him. Now, he's got enough space, hand, Fanny, on the bench, can move the cushion over. Now, we've already put the kayak in the hole here for this demonstration. And Sandy can move over. He still has enough hand, Fanny space. He can move his legs. Now, this is a really important characteristic right here. When you are seated, when he is seated up here and his legs are up here, as he drops these feet down, it becomes important because there's a slide board here. This slide board's going to come out. He's going to make one more transfer down. If his feet were up high and his backside drops down another 4 inches, suddenly he can lose balance backwards. So it was really important to have the rack dropped from here to give that foot position in, okay? There's no way Sandy could throw his weight and body from here over to here to get in a kayak. We all know about kayaks. If his body isn't centered over that kayak, what's going to happen to this kayak? It is going to tip. So what makes this unique is we have a way for Sandy to pull over a slide transfer. This one that we've got out here right now is the canoe one. We want to show you both of them. This is if we had a canoe in here. It's high enough a canoe could go under here, and it slides with one hand. We have a pull strap here to pull it back or to push it over. Makes it really easy. It rolls real easy. The second one down is for kayaks. It's lower. So you want to go ahead and pull that one over. Now, it's running into the back on the kayak. So Sandy needs to reposition his boat because it's bumping up against here. So he slides the boat forward to make sure the slide board goes all the way across. It actually lands on this bar. This slides very easy. We have the pull strap that helps move it. Now, this is very solid. It's landed over here. Now he continues to make his transfer over into the boat. Now we've got a couple of rails here. Depending on if you're getting in a canoe or a kayak, what kind of arm and hand function you have, what kind of support you need for balance, these two rails can be used for somebody if they want to reach over here and help pull their body across. These rails can help with the transfer process also. Now he's in the boat. He's got his cushion in with him. And you have another seat cushion, Sandy, here. You want to take that one off? Gets in, takes his cushion with him, puts the transfer back out of the way. It slides very easily closed back here. It just slides in real simple. Reaches up, grabs the handrails, moves himself forward on the rails, and he is going to get to the point where the kayak starts to tip. That is already underwater, so it wouldn't tip like that because that part is floating. So by the time you get to the end here, where the rack tips down, where the launch tips down, you're already floating. These rails continue out for him to be able to pull himself forward and out into the flow of water. Sandy's back now. He went out that way, went kayaking, came around, and he's paddling back in. So he's coming back into this launch. This is goes in this way, out that way. He's pulling himself up, same rail system out into the water, pulls himself up here, gets past where the transfer slide board is. The red straps here pull right out, slide behind him, There again, it latches over here, gets back in position. For him, he uses this cushion. Some people won't use that. For him, it's what he needs to do. Puts his hand over here, one on the kayak. That's how he does it. Other people do it different ways. Uses his cushion, scoots over a little bit. He's got enough space, hand, butt, we're all about that. Can get his feet out into that lower level here. Now, for him, getting up into this position to have his feet down there, get himself stable before he puts his feet up on the higher deck. These rails that he used on the side, he was able to pull himself along up this launch. There's also one underneath the end here. You need to close this for us. There you go. Transfers back. And you saw just how easy that rolls in and out. Pretty easy to do. And as you can tell, I've had to do literally nothing. This is all independent. He can get in and out on his own. It all operates, moves the boat on his own. We've even talked about him being able to put the boat in the rack on his own, and that is absolutely possible. Actually, it helps me getting in and out of this boat. So totally independent. But if this were me doing it, I could walk up here, get my boat in the hole. I could sit down, because for me, climbing over here and trying to get into something like this without something to hang on to is not happening. I am going to use this to get over onto. I'm going to do this. I'm probably not going to use all of this, but for me, this makes it a whole lot easier to get into my boat. And I do this. I do it different from him. When I came back in, same thing. For me to get out of here and get my feet out and get my seat down, all that sort of stuff, to stand up, get over here, close it up. I'd stand up and I'd go get my boat out of the hole. He can actually roll over here and either on his own or with assistance, depending on who he is, what kind of skills he has, he can get the boat out of the hole. We've got an opening here that he could actually, this is a pretty heavy boat, come over here and get a hold of it and get it out himself. We've got space and reach ranges to do that. This bar actually helps you to get the boat out. So for me, it makes it a lot easier for me to get this boat out of the hole, because I just slide it on this rail right on over. So if I had one of those wheel dolly doodads, whatever they're called, I can get my boat right out of here pretty darn simply. Okay? One person, two person, this opening and these rails are multiple function for everybody. Makes it easier to do. Universal design is not just about using the launch system, it's about getting here. We talked about the ramp earlier on. It's also about getting your boat in the hole and getting ready to go. So Sandy can roll right up. A lot of these guys will have a kayak, they'll use the little dolly system, the wheeled system, they'll get it up here. He can load this boat on his own. Something we discovered inadvertently is these side rails that we use to pull ourselves out into the water are a great opportunity, or they really support the loading of the kayak. So he can put this boat in the hole on his own. He moves into position, locks his wheels, moves around, gets it up on the rail, locks his wheels again, hauls it, gets it kind of in position, moves around. Now, we're working on a very small dock section here because we're in the lab. We would have much more dock space for maneuvering. It would make it a little easier. It wouldn't be bumping into the transfer system, but this works. Drops it in the hole, rolls right up, drops it in, hangs onto it, kind of gets it in position. Now, then he'd go back over here like he would typically to transfer. So he would transfer onto here, get in this position, he'd be over here. He could get this position, hanging onto here for support, get the kayak position, pull this out, make sure that it's right where he wants it to be. For him, he leaves the back up to transfer. Some people would put the back down slide the kayak back a little farther, drop onto the front of the seat, slide the board back. So he could move this from sitting here, then move on to here, slide over, get legs in, drop down in, move the board out of the way. Somebody like me coming back in, I would go forward, get up on here, and I'd probably step out. I might close this up there. I might sit on here to get out. I have options. Then I'm going to get the boat out of the hole. One of the things that I can do, because I can stand and walk, I might step over here, pull this forward like this, get a hold of it, and get it out of the hole. Now for me, this is a heavy boat. It's hard for me to do it by myself maybe, but with these rails, it helps me to just slide the boat out, lay it on the dock, and I can get it out of here. My daughter, Erin, is paralyzed on one side. She could actually do this with one hand to be able to use these rails to help her get this boat up on here. Again, I'm out of dock space here. She could put this up on here. She could put this boat in pretty much by herself using one hand and move it around. One of the universal design characteristics of this canoe kayak launch is it doesn't work for just one style of boat. We've really thought about it. There's a variety of roller types that are available depending on the kind of kayaks or canoes that would frequent this site. This is a sit-upon kayak. We also are using this particular kayak in one of our access to recreation sites in Lapeer County, where they actually are only using one type of kayak. So they're going to use a different roller system that's going to support this kayak. But this kayak can work on this roller system too. This is a sit-upon type. So for this one, we use the higher shelf, which works for sit-upon kayaks. It also works for canoes. Okay, same principle. I slide over here. Okay, I get my feet in position where I want to go. Drop my butt onto the kayak here. Now, in this type of roller, this is a little tippy, but it is not going to tip over. It's not going to slide out from underneath me. Put the transfer back, and by the way, this up top here on the end is going to say slide transfer. Somebody who uses a wheelchair, like Sandy, knows what a slide transfer is. It's something that they use to help move themselves from one surface to another. So it's going to say slide transfer here. On the back end there, it is going to say transfer station. It'll be clear what this is all about. So you get in your sit-upon and you move forward just like anybody else in the canoe or the kayak. So the higher one works. Same thing. When you come up here, open that shelf out, and these are cool because you can stick your feet in these things. Pick yourself up. Now I would do it this way. Some other people might use hand and on the kayak here. Just depends on what your skills are for getting in and out of your own boat. So for me, I'd do this. I'd get over here, put the slide board away, and with a boat like this, it's smaller, lighter. I can pick it up with one hand and take it out of the hole. So it works with all different types of boats, canoes and kayaks. This is Eric Mueller with Freedom Kayaks, and Eric is another one of our partners with the Access to Recreation Initiative. Eric has designed a fully universally accessible kayak that has a variety of features that make it easier to use by folks who have mobility impairments in particular, but even people like me who are a little nervous about if you tip over, how do you get back in your boat kind of thing. And it has some great features, and it's going to work in this canoe kayak launch. One of the things about this kayak launch is, I demonstrated earlier, we have a couple of levels of slide transfers. This one is pretty tight on here. If Eric had a lower back seat, it would work great. But because he's got a higher back seat, somebody who might need that level of support, the higher transfer works to be able to drop down over that higher back seat. A couple of the features of this kayak are, and we can't deploy them here, but if you'll point, Eric, where they are on the side here, there are some floats that actually are built into this kayak, and they actually deploy out to the sides, when you tip over, and that helps you to float stable this way to get back into your kayak. And they're molded right in. So if you're out kayaking, nobody knows that you're in an adaptive kayak. Part of our design process for this launch was also working with people like Eric who are developing adaptive equipment like this so that it will work with this launch. We're working with Eric to look at the roller system to make sure that it works with the type of material that this kayak is made out of. This one is out of fiberglass, and there are other kayaks that are out of Kevlar. Those have a much more delicate bottom, if you will, and we've got to make sure that roller systems on this kind of thing are usable by kayaks that have a little more delicate skins, if you will. We want to make sure that a launch like this doesn't hurt. But we wanted to show that even an adapted kayak like this works in this launch. The dimensions are right, the kayak will fit, the slide board having several options. This transfer system also is adjustable up and down by a few inches to fit the particular type of user groups that are going to be using these canoe and kayak launches. So we wanted to show that there is a new product out there, Freedom Kayaks. Go on their website, take a look. It's a prototype, and we're very excited to be working with Eric as a part of the Access to Recreation Initiative and Freedom